Holy smokes, I'm no joke out the bullpen, bringing nothing but heat, leave you hanging like clothespin.
Welcome everybody to the Fantasy Grill. I'm Anthony K. Here on the Fired Up Network, you can find me at sports_fluent. That's IG, Twitter, and TikTok. This week, we're going to take you through the top performers, the top fantasy performers of last week, the top 5. One of them will surprise you. We're also going to take you through the worst, at least maybe not the worst 5 performers, but at least my 5 biggest disappointments from last week in NFL fantasy. I'm going to give you some starts and sits. We're going to talk about some waiver wire picks. And I know what you're thinking, like, but I did my waivers a couple of days ago. I know. But here are people that still might be available that you need to pick up for your playoff run. So let's kick it off with the top 5 performers of last week. Yes, I've got my handy note card ready because who can remember all this stuff off the top of their heads? Not me. So here we go. Top 5 performers last week. We're starting with number 5. No, you know what? Let's start at number 1. Let's give the best performer top billing because you know what? They deserve it because we've been giving Devontae Adams a pretty hard time, but I don't think it's necessarily his fault based on the fact that Derek Carr has really been underperforming. Heck, the entire Las Vegas Raiders team has been a huge, huge disappointment this season. So that being said, here we go. Number 1, Devontae Adams, best performer of the week. Number 2, Amon St. Brown of the Detroit Lions. Wide receivers at the 1 and 2 spot. I told you wide receivers are important this year. More important maybe, and this is in PPR leagues, maybe a little bit more important than even running backs. Who knows? Maybe that 0 RB strategy that you used during the draft, maybe it's paying dividends. I don't know. Number 3, Jalen Hurts. I get it. You're going to say, but he's kind of a running back. Well, quarterback, running back, a quarterback that can run and get you yards on the ground or even rushing touchdowns. That is the key to a good quarterback in fantasy football. Number 4, A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts has a good week. A.J. Brown has a good week. I like it. And number 5, and this is where the surprise comes in. Number 5 is the Cleveland Browns defense and special teams. Yeah, I told you about 2 weeks ago, look for the matchups. Whoever is playing the Houston Texans, look at their defense. And I'm going to continue that trend moving forward. I actually picked up Kansas City this week because they're playing Houston in 2 weeks. And I think that's going to be a big game. People seem to forget Kansas City. You don't think of them for defense, but when you think of fantasy, Kansas City has been a surprisingly good fantasy defense over the last 5, 6, 7 years. They almost every year rank in the top 10, a couple of years out, but a couple of years even in the top 5. So there's your play for a couple of weeks from now. It's the Kansas City Chiefs or any team, like I said. This week, we'll get to that in a minute. All right, our worst 5, or like I said, my most disappointing. Yeah, you can boo him. Why not? So let me start with honorable mention. Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is not only a disappointing this week, disappointing season for Alvin Kamara. He used to be a set him and forget him at the running back position, but this year no longer. You actually have to look at matchups. You have to look at who else you have and their matchups and decide if you're going to start Alvin Kamara this season. So he's the honorable mention. Coming in at number 5, Nick Chubb with 8 points. Very disappointing, especially in a blowout against the Houston Texans. You thought they'd run the ball a little bit. You'd get some points. Same game, same team. Amari Cooper with 8 points. You expect more from these guys, at least double digits. 8 is not enough. Unlike that show used to, when I grew up at least, that show used to say 8 is enough. No, 8 is not enough. Number 3, and this is just a disappointing real football, fantasy football, week in, week out. I might just put him in at number 3 every single week, and that's Russell Wilson with 7.66 points. If it was me, I'd put 666 because he's been killing us over this season. And let me pause there for a minute and tell you, go take a look at Russell Wilson's contract. It is brutal. The extension kicks in after next season. After next season. He's going to be making so much money over the first 2 or 3 years, which is 3 years from now, and they can't even cut or buy him off. It'll cost them hundreds of millions of dollars in dead cap space. This Denver Broncos team has now been set back at least 10 years because of this Russell Wilson contract. It is brutal. I'll give you all the details. Come to my TikTok page at sports_fluent. I'm going to go through the entire Denver Bronco, at least Russell Wilson horrible contract that you're in. Number 2, Travis Kelce. 7.6 points out of my tight end 1. Can't have it, especially in a season where you're not getting anything from any tight end. I need Kelce to be that guy, especially because I have him in one of my team of my league of record. So I definitely need better than that from Travis Kelce. And number 1, King Henry. 5.8 points from Tennessee. Listen, that's their offense. It's Derrick Henry. So I need you to get more than 5 points, Derrick Henry. I need you. All right. Let's go to our starts of the week. At quarterback, we're starting Geno Smith. I kept making fun of him that, we wrote him off and he didn't write back and ha, ha, ha. We all had a great laugh. Man, he's having a great season. Start him with confidence against the Carolina Panthers. At your running back position, Tony Pollard. Yes, this is now the Tony Pollard show in Dallas. Big D going up against that Houston Texans defense. He's going to have a big game. And at wide receiver, I'm starting Garrett Wilson. Versus the Bills, I sure am. Look for him to have a big day. Let's go Jets. Jets, Jets. And honorable. I don't know if this is honorable mention, but I normally don't talk about defenses to start. But if you're streaming defenses, you have to start the Dallas Cowboys defense. 1, because they're great. But 2, they're going up against Houston. Cleveland was a top 5 scoring defense last week against Houston. You might see even bigger numbers this week out of Dallas. Then we move from the starts to the sits. Here we go. If you're sitting on a choice of quarterbacks and Tom Brady is one of them, start the other one. Tom Brady is a sit this week against that 49ers defense. We don't know who's going to be playing quarterback for the 49ers. It's going to be a low-scoring game, especially for Tampa Bay. Expect San Francisco to win this one, but you never know with Tom Brady. Who we kidding? But don't expect for him to have big fantasy numbers this week. At the running back position, I know we've started to look at Latavius Murray as a start. And you say, but Kansas City, it's against the Kansas City defense. Yeah, with the return of Mike Boone, going against a surprisingly better than you think fantasy defense, just the Broncos can't get anything going offensively. They're going up against a team that is going to put up points even on that Denver Broncos defense. So they're going to, I don't know how they're going to throw, but they're going to have to try to throw. And that just puts Latavius Murray in a bad situation where they're going to be down. They're not going to run the ball a lot. He's also now going to be sharing time with the return of Mike Boone. So it's a bad scenario for Latavius Murray. The next one, Devontae Smith of the Philadelphia Eagles up against the New York Giants. Divisional matchup. Expect it to be a close game. Expect it to be a lower scoring game. Smith is a sit-em this week. All right. So we're going to end things off with waivers. So here are the guys that you should have picked up already. So this is a reminder. We talked about them last week with the fantasy gods who will be on next week. And we talked about these guys. And if you missed it, or some of these are under 20% rostered. In the first one, I think is still only 17% rostered. So look at James Cook. As of the Buffalo Bills. If you haven't picked him up already, if he's available in your league, pick him up. I'm going to give you a bonus running back. But first, I got to tell you, NFL.com, look at this picture. Man, they did DJ Dallas dirty. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe that's just how he looks all the time. But I think they could have got a better picture of him. But anyways, DJ Dallas, There's some uncertainty about Kenneth Walker's health now with that ankle sprain, although DJ also might be suffering a high ankle sprain. If he's healthy and Kenneth Walker is hurt, that's an opportunity to plug him into your lineup. At wide receiver, who we're looking at, Demarcus Robinson is probably someone who you should be looking at who is not rostered in a lot of leagues. Back to Noah Fant as your tight end. Listen, we're all trying to figure out what the heck to do in the tight end position. No offense, as good as any option. If you stream quarterbacks in a 2 QB league, maybe you're in a super flex, here's some quarterbacks you should look at if you don't have them on your roster already. Jared Goff. Obviously, there's an injury to Lamar Jackson. If he's not able to go, Tyler Huntley. Obviously, we know what he can do also with his legs. And don't be fooled by Deshaun Watson. Don't give up on Deshaun Watson. For those of you that picked him up and kind of stashed him, if he's available in your league and you have a roster spot, slide him in there. He might be a sneaky fantasy championship winner. If depending on what your quarterback situation is, take a look at Deshaun Watson. And that's it for this week in the Fantasy Grill.
Now you're more fluent.
Yeah, holy smokes, I'm no joke out the bullpen. Bringing nothing but heat. Leave you hanging like clothespin.